Hi everybody, here we are for Vilo Sky's homeschooling drop-in webinar, which is our weekly forum where we talk about all things homeschooling. I'm joined by the lovely Ailsa Clark, who I'll introduce in a second, but I'm Vicky and I am the co-founder and director of Vilo Sky. We're a social enterprise that creates inclusive workplace cultures, and we've had a particular focus on working parents for a while now, just because it's certainly a personal area of focus for myself, but definitely an area where we feel that working parents don't get this kind of support that they need in workplace cultures right now to foster things like gender equality and just the kind of mental support that we need to be our best selves both at work and at home. So this series is part of that too, but of course with all the homeschooling stuff that we're all going through right now, it's just really about giving ourselves a chance to take a step away from the kids and just to focus on having a bit of time to settle ourselves, enough time to speak, talk to each other and talk to our expert, who is Ailsa Clark. So for my personal circumstances, I have two children. I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old who could burst through that door at any given time. So apologies up front if they do, but I think we're all getting used to online interruptions as well. And I work, I run a social enterprise as well as working in finance as well. So it's very, very full on right now. And there's plenty of things that I would like to discuss with Ailsa and myself, and that will be the format for today. So for all participants who are watching us live, if you have any questions, then feel free to either raise your hand. We have a couple of questions that I've already got from people before the session, so I'll bring those in as well. But at this point, I will hand over to Ailsa to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Ailsa. I've been a teacher for 15 years. I think 16 years this year, predominantly high school, but now I also teach primary children, private lessons. I am mum to one child who's got additional needs, so he is 8 at the moment, and I'm homeschooling him. Which is a bit like trying to homeschool a Tasmanian devil. And even when you're a teacher, homeschooling your own children is very different. So I think I kind of chime in with Vicky in that kind of trying to balance and juggle work and looking after the kids as well, and obviously working around my husband's timetable. He's a teacher too, so his lessons are fixed. It's all a big juggling act because of COVID.
I should have mentioned actually I have a husband too, so we are doing it together, partially. But yes, we are both supposed to be doing the homeschooling. I know if you went to this, he's doing a great sterling job as well. We're both juggling full-time jobs, so it's as hard for both of us. Let's leave it there. So we start these sessions with our wins and our frustrations of the week. So I'm happy to start with mine. Ailsa, I can go first this week. So for me, my frustration, and this has been building over the weeks, but certainly this week it's reaching a peak, is just not being able to get away from each other. So the four of us being in the house and it being full on 24/7, whether it's work or homeschooling or family stuff or cooking lunch, there's just never a break that any of us get from each other. And this is the kids as well. Like they're not getting a break from us as their parents. It's probably worse for them. At least we can go shopping, we'll go out for a walk or something on our own. The kids can't do that. It's not like last lockdown where they could go out on their bikes. The weather's awful.
Yeah, long days last lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that that's just been building over the weeks, but it's coming out in our frustrations with each other this week. So that's definitely my frustration of the week. But from a win perspective, I just am sadly just really proud of us getting work handed in, like, you know, actual official work that the teachers are asking for, getting the kids to do that work, complete it and hand it in and be okay with the quality. It's not much, and I know it's such a teeny tiny proportion of what they'd be doing at school, but to get that done with them, it just feels like a bit of a win, considering how frustrated we are. So that's my win and frustration of the week.
fantastic. But the thing about your win of the week, though, you don't know how much the kids are going to be doing at school, because school isn't like concentrated learning all day. There's loads of interruptions there too. So the chances are you're handing in some really good stuff.
Cool.
I would say.
Fingers crossed.
My frustration. That's you. You're exonerated. Take Friday off. My frustration of the week, I guess. Well, we're on an island, and normally when we one is in school, my head space, my mental health space, is going for a walk or going for a run. There are no street lights here, and I don't have a head torch, so I can't run before I have to start him with school. So I'm not getting any headspace. I'm not getting any exercise, because I'm working around him and I'm working around my husband as well. I just feel unhealthy, just physically and maybe in terms of headspace. So that's my frustration. Also, there's something about lockdown that makes a lot of people into students. They become nocturnal. So I'm going to bed later. Yeah, I'm going to bed later. It's almost like a kind of student lifestyle, and then I'm knackered in the morning. I think it's because I've had no time to myself during the day. I kind of stay up later. And in terms of when, my child wrote a short story. And it was 2 pages, double spaced. It took him an hour and a half. And at one point, my head was on the table with sheer frustration, but absolutely. And, we got through it and we handed the stuff in. Yeah, and I guess just yesterday also calling time, he'd had enough and he hadn't done all the work. I just thought, you can't think anymore. So I'm calling that a win. Child Mental Health Week. His mental health's more important than doing all his work.
Yeah, we're going to talk about mental health a bit today, actually, but I think that segues quite nicely into our topic of the day, or topic of the week, which is about the kids going back to school, phasing back to school, which we found out a couple of days ago in Scotland, that which is where we are, that from the 22nd of February, P1 to P3s will be going back, hopefully, to be confirmed in a couple of weeks. And after that point, we expect other school years to be going back as well. I think there's a senior year that is going back, so there'll be some viewers.
Senior phase, so that's our S4 to S6 pupils, and in England that's their GCSE, AS and A-level pupils, but it's only those who have practical work to complete. So
technology stuff,
stuff like that. So your academic subjects for the time being are still remote learning. Yeah.
So obviously in England and some of the regions, it's yet to be determined as to when the kids will be going back. But just initial reaction, I'm keen to hear how you feel about it, Ailsa, but from my perspective, I mean, considering what I've been saying about our frustrations, I feel that we're at a point where us as parents and the kids' mental health is starting to become as much of a priority to consider as the health risk from COVID. So I totally appreciate why people will be hugely concerned about the kids going back to school right now. There's this new variant coming in. Another
new variant,
another new variant, and who knows what that's going to be like. And there's been some reaction. So I've been looking through some of the news reports about the reaction to going back to school, and there's even from kids who are saying they don't want to go back and then have to come home again. It's about consistency. So if you're going to go back, be able to stay going back. Don't keep dropping idiots. That's not helpful either. So I guess from a reaction perspective as a teacher, something that I've always been reassured by and was reassured by after the last lockdown was how well the school approached cleanliness and social distancing in the playground and stuff. How do you feel about that as a teacher? Like, what would go through your head with the kids coming back and thinking about parents' concerns and things like that?
I know that amongst a lot of my colleagues, there's a huge concern that it's too early.
Right.
I think that they would like to be vaccinated. Like, school staff should be vaccinated, particularly in high schools, where there's good evidence, as far as I understand, that the kind of children, particularly in the older teenage years, are just as likely to transmit it. They're vectors of transmission, particularly high school. I think that the Scottish Government's in a very difficult position because all their advisors are saying that children's mental health is really, really important. And I think that's why they've put the younger years back first, because school is still relatively new to them, and large kind of gaps in their education, large periods of time where they're not in school, they don't have that continuity, they don't get into the rhythm of it. So from a mental health point of view, I can totally understand why they feel that kids should be in school, but it remains to be seen how they're actually going to roll that out and how they're going to deal with it. What will probably happen is that the local authorities will give guidance to each of the schools as to what they should do. I do school staff will do their utmost to ensure, physical distancing and cleanliness and everything that goes along with COVID regulations. You can't physically distance with some kids, though. You can't. I mean, if kids have additional support needs, there are certain types of additional support needs where you cannot physically distance. My son's one of them.
So I think just picking up on the vaccine and testing point, I've heard various things about this. So obviously, teachers and the older children going back are going to be given access to home testing kits twice a week. So testing will be happening for teachers and parents.
They're given access to them. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take them.
You're given access to it. But I've heard or I've read some reports just about this issue with vaccinating teachers and the debate around where they should be in the priority list, and the rollout to the most vulnerable is what is going to alleviate the pressure on the health system, which is why teachers aren't being prioritized for vaccination right now, because I guess the point being that even if they catch it, they're not the ones that are going to be most at risk of causing a burden to the NHS. But I guess the point is that doesn't mean they're not going to be passing it on to other people. But if the most vulnerable have been vaccinated, then the issue with them getting it is removed. So that's the rationalization, because I always thought, well, why don't you just vaccinate the teachers? Like, why not just vaccinate teachers?
It's a bit more complex than that. It's not necessarily just that teachers have it or don't have it, or can transmit it or don't transmit it. It's what happens when you have the inevitable cough, cold, sniffle, can't taste your tea that you normally have several times during a teaching term. Because you have to not go into school when you would normally to teach your class, because it's just a cold, or you suspect it's just a cold. You have to stay off, and you have to be off until you have a COVID test, and that test comes back negative. So there are huge implications for schools and the amount of staff actually available to teach classes.
So it's still potential disruption.
Same with kids. You've got kids that have to self-isolate until they find that it's a negative test come back. They've missed parts of their learning. There's an argument for, and I don't think that any teacher would think that they skip somebody clinically vulnerable in a queue, although some teachers are clinically vulnerable. Some teachers were shielding. Some of my friends were shielding, and then were told one day that they had to go back to the classroom.
So do you think there's going to be a concern with teachers then about going back to school? So in my experience of teachers, such professionals in how they've dealt with what they've had to do to bring everything online, but also with the return to school, like I've never seen anything other than professionalism as a parent. But I think because of that, it can be easy to forget that they're parents and human beings as well, who are dealing with the same concept that we might have as parents. So obviously you see that from the other side.
And you've also got parents at the moment who are homeschooling and have their own children, and
teachers,
parents say, if you are a primary 1 to 3 teacher, you're going back to work on the 22nd of February. What happens if you have older children? There's all that. I mean, do they get a key worker place? I think there's still a lot that has to be clarified, and obviously the government are waiting to see what infection rates are like in the next couple of weeks before they get that clarity. But that's going to be the 16th, and P1 to 3s and early years supposed to be back on the 22nd. So I think teachers will do it. They'll do it. They did it before, and they've done a sterling job, I think, providing home learning for the most part.
So
I think there's quite.
Let's move on to the reasons why it would be happening so soon then. And as I've already alluded to, I just see the reason from a mental health perspective for both parents and the children. And there's also economic reasons in terms of working parents being able to work. But also, as importantly to consider, is the education that children are missing out on while they're off. So the mental health part for kids and parents. As a parent, how are you feeling? And how do you feel more broadly kids are coping right now with homeschooling? And I'm going to tell you a heartbreaking story in a minute from my side.
Don't make me cry. It's almost the end of the week. How am I feeling mental health wise? A bit under the cautious, I guess. A lot of parents are, just as you were saying, from not getting a break, not getting that mental break, where you are out of your house, because when you're in your house, you always see the stuff that needs done. And this morning, for example, I was trying to teach my kid at the same time as load the dishwasher and put away last night's tea and tidy up the bedroom. So I had one part of my brain as teacher and one part of my brain as parent. And I think it's a kind of constant state of low level, I wouldn't say stress, but just awareness. I wouldn't say mental health is particularly poor, but I'm tired, and I think a lot of people are tired and also a little bit short-tempered. Like having to walk into another room quietly swear and come back again. How parents are feeling in general. My friends, I think, are really feeling it. They're feeling it more this lockdown than they were last lockdown, I think. And part of that is to do with the weather. And part of that is to do with the fact that it's almost been a year now that this has been going on. Part of it, I guess, is that exhaustion you would feel in the last couple of miles of a long distance race when you know it's not long to go. But you don't know if you've got enough power in your legs to get you there.
And then you just get to the end and then someone moves the finish line back even further.
And I think there's a lot of frustrations and tensions boiling over with kids and parents as well, particularly around making them do work. I have said to several friends of mine, then work's not a priority. And I said this last time, I'll say it again, there are people who've lived in war zones who've missed years of their education, and they still educate. They're still educated. They still, in some cases, have university degrees, really good jobs. I think the difficulty here is, and particularly the government, I think, are thinking about the kids who are at the bottom end of that attainment gap. And the kids who aren't getting fed, and the kids who don't have access to technology. Our kids are okay because we'll see them right, but there are plenty other children who are not in that position, and getting them back to school is really important.
So the story I had to tell, which I think is quite reflective on kids' mental states at the moment, and it did make me cry, was my son had to do a newspaper report or a broadcast. He had to write a script for a broadcast about online learning under COVID. So his headline that I was sat there helping him with was homeschooling is not as fun as being at school, which was, I was comfortable with that. That's absolutely fine. I get it. It's not. So that was me helping him talk through that and trying to sort of sanitize his headline. And then I left him, this is my 8-year-old, I left him to start writing his actual script, and I came back to have a look at it later. I'm gonna have to be careful not to cry again, actually. And the sentence he had written was, homeschooling is really tough because I get no break and I never normally get headaches or shouted at when I'm at school.
Oh,
And
bless him.
I know, and just
Oh,
everything about that sentence broke my heart. And I just took a moment, and we had a shouty morning. He was
mhm.
frustrating me so much because he was procrastinating and sat there and daydreaming and looking at anything except his work, for stuff that I knew he could do. So I got frustrated because I got a window of time to be doing it with him on before I had to be pulled off to work. So many explanations and reasons why, but it just the guilt and this recognition of how hard this is for him and how actually he's struggling. So when we think about going
Yeah,
back,
struggle.
yeah, struggling, and I just feel like he needs to be back at school, and all of us need to recognize the effect that this is having on us. I think everybody is getting
Yeah,
a bit shouty and a bit tired and a bit
yeah,
frustrated with it all.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
that did
Because I
just
mean, you're being asked to be two people. He's been asked to be two people. He's been asked to be your son, but he's also been asked to be a pupil.
yeah,
And you're being asked to be mum and teacher. And for a lot of kids, they can't really merge these two. School is school and home is home.
yeah,
You know, and and it's quite jarring for them to have to deal with that for a long period of time. Also, the thing about not getting a break, I mean, if you've only got a couple of hours in the morning that you've taken off work to specifically help with homeschool, that's the time that you have to help him. So that you want to do as much as possible because you love your son and you want to help him.
yeah,
Whereas possibly for him, in that environment, because it's a bit weird and stressful, he can actually manage less than he would in school anyway, because that's all his brain can take in. And you might need to dial it down, and he might need more playing time. He might actually need movement breaks. I get my kids going to movement breaks. I get like frog jumps or star jumps or whatever. And up and down the hall, because they do need to move, and there's a lot of opportunity for them to do that, particularly in primary school.
So we have half term here next week, which I think is coming at a really good time for us. But I've also recognised that I need some time off too, and so I actually, as a reaction to that, have booked some time off work in the next few weeks. So I think it's just for everybody. We need to realise how hard this is, and that we all need a break. And in whatever way we can take that, then it's really important to do so. But yeah, I think it is coming out, I think, and it will continue to come out. So just on that point with teachers and how they'll manage kids' mental health when they get back, I mean, it's going to be difficult for some kids, I think, with everything they're hearing about COVID, to not be scared about going back in some ways. I'm pretty sure that you'll say teachers will be well aware of that, but teachers, I'm sure, will be well aware of that.
Yeah, so if you look at the way they approached it, when the kids went back to school in August, so health and wellbeing is a kind of core part of the Scottish curriculum, and it's the same south of the border. So they're well aware of the fact that you can't learn unless you feel safe. So for the first good few weeks they were back at school, the tasks were to do with building confidence and to do with getting them integrated again. So they were kind of easy academic tasks, and the structures were reinforced, the routines were reinforced, so the kids felt they knew what was coming next. There was much more time to get to know them and just ease them into it. And I think that schools are very sensitive to parental concerns. So if parents say, my child's anxious, they do talk quite openly about COVID and about what you have to do to keep safe and stuff like that. So I think that will be uppermost in the teachers' minds, because they're also concerned for their own health,
And I guess for any parents who are worried about that, go talk to the teachers.
Yeah,
we'll be expecting questions and inviting.
Absolutely. They're well aware. We had an email from our head teacher, or my son's head teacher, just saying, I know that you'll have a lot of questions. I know there's a lot of anxieties. As soon as we know what's happening, we'll let you know, but the kids will be safe at school. And communication like that from school can be tremendously reassuring, because then the parents know that the school are aware of that.
Sure. Cool. Okay, so I have half an eye on the time. These are 30-minute sessions, and as much as we could talk all afternoon, which is always the case, I'm keen to just make sure we have time for any questions and to give your 3 top tips of the week, which we'll move on to next. So just for everybody who's listening, what would be your 3 homeschooling top tips for this week?
Well, I think one of the first ones that I would tell you, particularly as we're heading into a period where we've all been back about 6 weeks and we're all getting a bit frayed, I would dial down the expectations. Your kid may be able to read at this level, but they're tired, they're knackered, they're frustrated, and they've had enough. It's near the break, so dial down your expectations, cut down the workload if you feel it's too much, be guided by them. So don't be expecting them to do absolutely everything. Pick what is most important and do that one. Okay. Second one I would say, and it's really important for any age group, doesn't matter whether you've got a 5-year-old or an 18-year-old, get them active, get them moving, because kids don't sit for hours at a time in a classroom, so they shouldn't be sitting for hours at a time at home. Chunk the work, so do 3 questions or do this part of the task, go and do something else. So for my wee guy, he will say, can I have a break? And I say, okay, cool, go and play with your Lego for 15 minutes. Just give them a physical and mental break, a redirection, and then come back. And if they're really struggling to engage, don't bother, go and do something else. There's plenty of stuff that they can do in the house or in the garden that will bring those skills on anyway. If they're helping you in the kitchen, if they're helping you cook, if they're, there's literacy and measurement, and there's stuff that they can do. Life skills are really important as well, but nothing is more important than their mental health and your mental health.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So just in terms of closing, we will be back here again at the same time next week for a 30-minute chat. Who knows what will have happened between now and next week, but for some of us it will be half term. For others of us, we will probably be waiting with bated breath to see what is coming in terms of schools reopening. And yeah, it will just be another week closer, hopefully, to getting back to some semblance of normality. But from my perspective, as always, I just want to applaud everybody who is doing such a fantastic job. Ourselves included, Ailsa. I mean, this is really, really challenging times we're in at the moment, and I think we do need to step back to appreciate that, and to recognise the awesome job that we're all doing. We all love our kids and we want the best for them, and that's what all this is about, as well as all our other loved ones who are going through health challenges at the moment, etc. So everyone's doing a fantastic job, and I think just stay strong, keep resilient, keep coming back, ask us any questions before next week's session. If there's any suggested topics for us to talk about, then feel free to suggest them. I can be reached through our website, which is www.vilosky.com, or via my email, our info@vilosky.com, or through LinkedIn or any of our social media accounts. We'd love to chat to you that way. Anything you wanted to say, Ailsa?
No, I'm good. I would just say keep on keeping on, because we'll get there, and the kids will be fine.
Yeah,
kids will be.
And I'm not seeing any outstanding questions that we have currently, so I think we're comfortable to leave it there for now. So yeah, we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks then. Bye.